Star Wars 7x7 episode 1943. Well, I thought we were going to be talking about the new episode of Star Wars Resistance, but then those sneaky folks at Lucasfilm decided to give us one more trailer for The Mandalorian, so let's talk about what's new. Punch it! Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. So, here's the thing, the Mandalorian trailer that debuted last night actually didn't have a heck of a lot of new stuff in it. And I mean that in a couple of different ways. First of all, there were many shots in this new trailer that we've already seen in the August trailer, okay, so there's that. And then there were a couple of scenes that were shown at Star Wars Celebration Chicago, so even though they were old scenes in that sense, for the people who were actually at the Mandalorian panel or who managed to find the footage that wasn't supposed to be uploaded anywhere but was uploaded in various places, well, some of that actually appeared in this new trailer that they debuted last night. So let's talk about what's new. For a start, there was a scene in a previous trailer where we saw that one alien on a little, like, sort of shortened dewback creature. Well, this time we actually got to see that guy riding that same creature along a canyon ridge, and the Mandalorian riding another one right behind him. So maybe this guy is a guide, or this woman is a guide. Hard to say whether it's a man or a woman, or, you know, some other gender entirely. You know, it's space after all. Seems like some sort of guide. And we also get to see, well, this is another thing that we've sort of seen previously, but not in live action. We get to see the Mandalorian face off with a couple of Trandoshans. That would be Bosk's species, for example. That scene was actually shown in a still image shot that was revealed exclusively by Entertainment Weekly, but now we actually get to see some of the live action for lack of a better. And we also get to see the Mandalorian give one of those Trandoshans a nice zap from his rifle, which in what used to be canon, such as it was, because it was in the holiday special, but it was also actually, I think, in the Force Unleashed video game? Anyway, an Ambin Phase Pulse Blaster. That's what it used to be called. We don't know if that's what it's going to be called when it becomes official in The Mandalorian, when that goes live. But anyway, that's what that thing is or was, as far as we know. And we get to see the Mandalorian unloading carbonite frozen bounties from his cargo hold. These are ones that we've seen in the cargo hold already, but now we see them coming off the ship. There are a few incidental scenes here and there where you get to see, you know, sort of the flavor of the world that we're going to be in, or the worlds that we're going to be in, like a shot of bar patrons, for example, but it doesn't necessarily tell us anything new or interesting, just that, you know, the Mandalorian's probably going to be there at some point. There's a door that opens where you get to see 4 grimy-looking stormtroopers, and that scene was actually part of the scene that was shown at Celebration Chicago. And I mean, it's hard to tell in that one shot, but behind where they're standing, that's where Werner Herzog's character is. And we obviously get to see him a little more, as well as get a very menacing voiceover from him. I mean, he does menacing voiceovers very well. In fact, you know, just listen to how he starts this one.
Is the world more peaceful since the revolution?
The revolution, he says. That's what he calls the rebellion that overthrew the Galactic Empire. Fascinating stuff. And again, he is some sort of imperial dignitary, but who he is and, you know, whether he's actually somebody known in the Star Wars universe at this point, we just don't necessarily know. There is a scene that has been shown before, and I finally got a better look at it. It's when the Mandalorian comes out of some building and immediately shoots a stormtrooper that's on the side of the door, and then he gets shot in the left shoulder, but his armor actually deflects the blast and he shoots another stormtrooper. But the thing that I noticed that I hadn't noticed previously is that it looks like Carl Weathers' character, Greef Karga, is coming out of the doorway behind the Mandalorian. So you get to see that in a brief flash. There's also what appears to be a new kind of spaceship flying overhead in one shot where you see smoke rising and a ship passing over. And then we've seen scenes where there are townspeople running through streets and whatnot, but this time we actually see droids walking around shooting things up, and they look very similar to the B-2 super battle droids that we were first introduced to in Attack of the Clones back in 2002. And apparently we're going to get our fair share of beasts in this Star Wars series, because there's another crazy roaring beast that the Mandalorian seems to have to tame. Like, he's got it roped basically and is wrestling with it, and it's dragging him along. The guy that was riding the little dewbacky thing, or the shortened dewback thing, is shown in a cockpit of a ship with the Mandalorian, giving the Mandalorian a pat on the shoulder. And there's another scene where the Mandalorian is on a speeder and appears to be following somebody else on a speeder. Might be the same person that we saw in the August trailer, where there was a brief shot of somebody kind of skidding to a stop in the nighttime on a speeder. And it does make me wonder if some of the situations in The Mandalorian where he's going out and collecting bounties are going to be involving him connecting with somebody on the ground of a particular planet, trying to, get the lay of the land and get a direction to who he's supposed to be trying to capture. Woo! Pardon me, excuse me. Yeah, late night recording because of the late drop of the trailer. And we get another shot of something that we saw in August very briefly, of some sort of space battle where there is a ship that is chasing the Mandalorian's ship, the Razor Crest. But, firing upon it, that's as much as we know. There's also a shot of Carl Weathers' Grief Karga along with 3 other scoundrel-looking folks looking at what appears to be the Mandalorian's ship, the Razor Crest, landing someplace. Does make me wonder whether the guild that Grief Karga organizes in The Mandalorian, or has organized in The Mandalorian, to try to parcel out jobs to bounty hunters and kind of keep everybody fed and happy and working and whatnot, whether we're actually going to see the formation of this guild happen early on in this first season. There's also a significant handshake with Cara Dune that The Mandalorian has, with a lot of townspeople hanging around, so it does kind of make you wonder if Cara, wherever she is actually protecting this group of townsfolks and just happens to have partnered with the Mandalorian in some way. There's a lot of talk about how the Mandalorian is trying to live by some sort of code, but there's only so much that the galaxy will allow him to do, if you will, and so maybe this is a situation where he's going to go a little bit straighter and narrower, as opposed to being too much of a scoundrel in this particular sense. Again, supposition. The big time shot for the trailer, though, that's brand new, is the Mandalorian hooked on by a cable to a TIE fighter in flight and reeling himself in. It looks like his jetpack is firing as well to get him to the cockpit, lands on top of the cockpit, and then they cut briefly to the inside of it, where Giancarlo Esposito's character Moff Gideon is inside, and he looks up at the Mandalorian, who starts being about to pound on the lid of that TIE fighter. Like, that's the big dramatic shot for the new trailer prior to things going dark. And in the voiceover, Werner Herzog is saying, "Hey, Mandalorian, they're waiting for you." And for the first time publicly, we get to hear Pedro Pascal's voice as the Mandalorian, where he says, "Yeah, good." And we heard his voice previously at Celebration Chicago in the scene that they showed to the audience in attendance only, so it's very nice to finally hear for public consumption even just 2 words out of Pedro Pascal's mouth as the Mandalorian. And yeah, you can tell that he is not going to take any mess whatsoever, and it doesn't matter what the odds are. In fact, the the scene that was shown at Celebration has him facing off with those 4 stormtroopers that we saw in this final trailer that was dropped last night. And Werner Herzog tells him, 4-1, this doesn't look good. And the Mandalorian says, "I like those odds." So that was one of the big cheering moments at Celebration Chicago, where it's like, yeah, the Mandalorian is a bad mamma jamma. And that is going to do it for covering the new stuff on the trailer. There are a couple of other notes that I want to flag for you that, we'll... a couple of names that are appearing in the credits for the show so far that are kind of new and interesting. So I'll share those with you in just a moment. Stay tuned. Hey Rebel Rouser, I've made some changes to the asteroid belt level at patreon.com/SW7X7, and they are all with sponsors in mind. So if you want to get the word out about your business, your product, your service to a dedicated Star Wars audience, then please check out patreon.com/SW7X7 and look for the asteroid belt level for details. Again, that's patreon.com/SW7X7. Welcome back. So, one person who appears in the trailer that has been named and at least is recognizable. I didn't necessarily recognize him right off the bat, but his name is Bill Burr. He is a stand-up comedian, but is also known for having played a role on Breaking Bad. So, yeah, there's another Star Wars Breaking Bad connection for you. He's the guy who you see like stepping out from, behind a corner into a doorway, and he's got a little laser cannon on his shoulder in addition to the two blasters that he's firing with his hands. Anyway, so that's Bill Burr. Jet Lucas, who is one of George Lucas's kids, is working as a visual effects production assistant on the show, and I thought that was pretty cool. There's a note about somebody who is working as an assistant to Taika Waititi, and according to IMDb, is only there for 2 episodes. And so we know that Taika Waititi is only directing 1 episode. And so I guess the question becomes whether IG-11, to whom Taika Waititi is giving a voice, will be in just 1 episode or 2 episodes. So, let's play with that idea and see what you think about it. And then in the credits on IMDb, there's an actor who is identified as a Navarro street dealer. And Navarro is spelled Nevarro. There is no indication of the phrase Navarro in Wikipedia right now. So it's hard to tell whether that is a city or a planet or, maybe unrelated to both, but money's kind of on a planet if that's actually the case, which would be very cool that we might be seeing a brand new planet or planets, plural, in The Mandalorian. That's, however, what I've got for you right now, and what are the days? It's going to be the 29th when this episode comes out, so 2 weeks. We've got 2 weeks until The Mandalorian's first episode debuts with the launch of Disney+, which is super exciting stuff. And yeah, we'll go through the whole episode as soon as it drops. But for now, that is going to do it for this episode of the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me for it, as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
This podcast is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox. It is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other related Star Wars items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2019 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.